Hello, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I think we get started. So, hello, everyone.
Fuck.
Everything all right? Okay, sorry guys, we have a little problem. We're back with you in 1 second. Some technical issues.
Oh. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, but can you start the? I can't actually start the webinar.
The webinar started already. I can. Should I make you a presenter?
Okay, you can do that. Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. So let's try. Sorry guys.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar of 2018. So today, Max and I are going to show, I think, sort of a early user favorite, or something that we focus on a lot, which is essentially to synchronize your design model, your Revit model with your analysis model, and more importantly, to import calculation results from the analysis model into the Revit drawing. So, so I'm just going to give a 3-minute run through of what Konstru is for anybody who's brand new to us. And then we'll jump into a live demo for about 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. And you can see on the in the webinar panel, you should be able to see a questions tab where you can ask questions at any time, and we will go through them all in the end of the webinar. Okay, so let's get started. So a bit of background. Max and I both used to work at Thornton Tomasetti at a structural engineering company. And at Thornton Tomasetti, we developed, as part of the R&D group, we developed a interoperability solution, which about a year ago, we decided, as a company, we decided to spin off into an independent platform. And this is essentially how Konstru was born. So this had already been used for 5-6 years at a large engineering firm and had been developed there. And more recently, we kind of developed it to be used more widely by other firms as well. And why did we see the need to develop this tool? So a lot of the projects that we've worked on and that we see others work on, of course, are not just handled in one single piece of software. I mean, essentially, for engineers, essentially, there's barely any product that you can just seamlessly kind of analyze and document. And so we saw the need to extract information that originates in a variety of programs and bring all of this together into one single data repository. In this case, that's Konstru, so that we can manage it and we can work off that. Let's see. So in the example in this building that you can see here, this is a project that was engineered by Thornton Tomasetti, and they used RAM for part of the analysis. They used SAP for the exterior truss structure, and then they used Revit to document all of this. And I think this is a pretty common workflow that we see across the board all over the world. So with Konstru, you can use that same, you can see that same model in any of the programs that we support. So at the moment, we support 8 different pieces of software: SAP, Revit, RAM, Grasshopper, Excel, Etabs, Dynamo, and Tekla. And essentially, Konstru is a web-based interoperability platform that has a central data repository, as well as we have 8 different plugins for these desktop applications that you can use to upload and download information from and into our data repository. And as you do that, Konstru keeps track of the changes. So every time you upload something to an existing model, we can like under the hood, we compare what is currently in the model and what you're adding to it. And we keep track of those changes so that we can, for example, what you can do along the way is you can understand what you worked on in the last month. Or if you were to bring something back into your desktop application, like into, let's just say, into Revit or into Tekla, into an existing model, you can see what is going to be updated, what is going to be added, and what is going to be removed from the model. And only if you like what you see, you can then apply that change. And the other thing that we built in, again, based on a lot of experience, is the idea to have very fine or very high detail of control of how the data is imported and exported. So oftentimes, for example, when you have a model in an analysis program and another model in a fabrication or documentation software, the geometry might differ. So maybe slabs are hosted at the center line in the analysis model, but they're hosted at the top of slab in the Revit model. And you don't want when you make an update from one software into the other, you don't want to bring those justification settings across, for example. So with Konstru, you can say, yes, exchange the material from this software into that software, exchange the material information for this particular slab, but do not exchange the justification setting or the geometry or any other attribute that you may or may not want to include. So you can essentially specify filter settings for which information should get updated and which information should be ignored. And then finally, like I said earlier, we do always give you a preview of what is about to happen before you commit. So Max will also demo this. So when you are about to update your existing model with changes coming from another platform, you're going to see a report of what is going to be changed before I think from working in programs like, or in file formats like IFC, where you essentially just open this whole model in the background, but you don't quite know what is different to what you had before. So with Konstru, you can really understand what is different, what is new, what is going to be deleted, and work from there. So yeah, a few other things that we can do, and we've covered this in our past webinar, and we'll do this again pretty soon, is you can also upload different files. So you can have a entirely separately modeled file from Etabs and another one from SAP, for example, or from RAM, and you can just compare them, and you can understand changes between them, and then you can even do things like extract certain information from one to the other. But today, we'll mainly talk about how to bring information from the analysis model into the Revit model. And so, so we're going to jump over to Max's screen now, and Max will show you how. So I think he started the model in Revit, did some repairs to it, brought it into Etabs, and then now he's going to show you how to bring those calculations back into Revit.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jonathan. So currently you can see my screen, I guess. So what we see here is an analysis model that we have in Etabs 2016. And this is our sample model. You saw that before if you have attended any of our other webinars. And what I'm going to show you now is how to prepare this model for analysis. I mean, that's pretty basic, but also how it works basically together with Konstru. So the first thing we have to do, we have to define a load combination. This is very important because from Konstru, if we want to upload end forces of the members, we have to make sure we have a load combination because we'll upload them by load combinations. So I'm going to define one and just call it, in this case, for example, LC1, and it's a linear add and it's using the dead loads. So this is fine. I'm going to say OK, and now I have a load combination. You might have already your load combination set up in your model. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assign loads because we have to analyze this model. So I'm going to select some of those beams that we have at the top here, and maybe this one as well. So we have those selected, and I'm going to say assign and putting a frame load there, and I'm going to use a distributed load, for example, and just apply like 2 kip feet to this model. Now, as you can see here, now we have the loads applied, and they're coming from the top. You can have any load setup, whatever you want. And the sense of this today is how to get the results out, and that's quite easy. because what we're going to do now is just run the analysis, and I have to just save this file, save it in a random place for this demo. And so what happens, Etabs is now analyzing the model, and this might take a while. The model is not too complex, that's why we chose that. So we have an analysis that we can actually run live, and it's almost done. And what Konstru does is basically what we are uploading automatically are the results, like shear forces, for example, from endpoints of frames to Konstru. And we're going to see that in a second. So this is the model that we have analyzed. And here you see the deformation. And you can also see here, if you hover the points here, you see all the values that we have. And now what we're going to do is we're going to upload this model, including its results, to Konstru. Therefore, I have to go to Konstru and app.konstru.com. And once you're logged in, you see the standard screen with all new models. And what I'm going to do is creating a new model. It's called Analysis Results. And I'm going to click Create. And this creates a new Konstru model container. So since Konstru works with versions, and this is an empty container, and we have to fill it now with our first version. Therefore, I'm going to jump back to Etabs. And now this is very important. If I want to upload any results, don't unlock the model. This is important. Just keep it locked after results. And now I'm going to go to Tools and click Konstru. Now, if I run Konstru, I can select this model that I just created, which is Analysis Results. And now the next step, because this model is empty, I can only upload something. Now what we see here is there's already here, we have this one. This is new for those of you guys who used Konstru already. Here you can select your filter now from the beginning. I'm going to explain that in a second, what it means in detail, because we will filter some things. Now I'm going to click Update Konstru. And this is my first upload. And in this case, and this is very important, here I can say upload analysis results with each member. This option is not available if you have your model unlocked, because if it's unlocked, we know there are no analysis results and therefore we cannot upload them. So if you want to upload any results, make sure you run the analysis and you have your model locked. And I'm going to check this one, and I have to select the load combination I want to upload. In this case, I'm going to select LC1, which is the only one I have. Now I'm going to click Update Konstru. And now Jonathan already mentioned that in Konstru, we're always giving you kind of a review. And in this review dialog, we're going to see all the elements that are coming into this model. So we have columns, beams, linear loads, and stuff like that, and also load patterns and load cases and load combinations. And this is the part when filtering comes into play, because, for example, in our case, we don't want to have load patterns or cases or combinations in Revit. What I'm going to do here is here we see on the top side, there's a filter that we can select. Here it says recommended upload from Etabs. Now, if you click that filter symbol, this takes you to the Konstru web app. And here we see all the filters we have for Etabs. And now currently we don't have any custom ones. So I'm going to select one of our filter that we have, the recommended upload from Etabs. I'm going to clone that one. Now this is from Etabs to Konstru. And I'm going to say this is Etabs without load combinations and stuff like that. So I'm going to say LC, that's fine. And I'm going to use the recommended template, make it a default filter, because I might want to use it as default in general for all my organization. And I'm going to click Create. Now this creates a new filter here, and I'm going to edit. And in here, you see all the element types we're supporting, and you see all the properties. Jonathan was mentioning this because if you update elements, you can also uncheck certain properties here if you want to. What we're going to do now is going to deactivate some types. In this case, load pattern, load case, load combination, and also maybe don't want to have any nodes or restraints or releases. I'm just going to drop all of this information. Now I'm going to select Save, and this filter has been saved. And now I can go back to my application. And in here, I have to click the Reload button. So once I click this one, I have Etabs without LC as an option. And if I select that one, then Konstru is going to rerun what we call saging process, which is actually just comparing the two models against each other, and the model we have online and the model we have here in Etabs. And what we can see now is, this is also what you see here in the symbols, that none of the restraints, releases, load patterns, load cases, load combinations will be uploaded. And you see the little filter symbol, which means that here, if you hover it, load combinations are filtered entirely. And there are also some others that are just not supported by this plugin. This is fine. We just show them so you know that in theory, there are some elements here, but we don't support them like cables. They're only for SAP, for example. So right now we have those elements and we can say, great, finish update. And this change will now be committed to the server. Now we can jump online and we will see our model online. And this is fairly easy. If you use Konstru the first time, it's absolutely the same. It's very easy, pretty simple process. And now you have the model online. What you can see at the top are the line loads that we applied here. You see them here. And you see the entire model. Now, what's interesting, what we were talking about were the forces. Remember, we checked this checkbox and we selected LC1. So let's select one of the beams here, the bigger ones. And what we can see here on the right-hand side, if we scroll down, in the attributes, you see forces. And we have this nice table here. Now, my screen is a bit tiny at the moment because I'm on a laptop, so usually it's a bit has more space. But you can see here, we have a nice table here. If you used Konstru before, some months ago, we didn't have that, but now we have this really beautiful table telling you about start and end points. And then we have axial force, shear forces, and bending moments, and all this information in here. So what I'm going to do now to show you how that works in Revit, just to visualize them, we're going to directly download this one into Revit. Now, I'm jumping to Revit, and also in Revit I have Konstru in the Konstru menu bar, and I'm going to click Konstru. And now I'm also in the webinar account here, and it's loading my models. Sometimes, depending on your connection, it can take a bit. And we can select the model and then download that one into Revit. We also, after this one, after we're going to Revit, I'm going to show you how to download this model also into Excel. And because sometimes you want to round those values, because if we have a look at those here, in most cases they're fine, but maybe you want to have a different unit or you want to change them a bit. And we usually recommend you to go through Excel. And then in Excel, you can actually create new attributes and then just add that information to it or just manipulate forces directly in Excel. I'm going to show you that in a second. I'm jumping to Revit. Now in Revit, I'm going to select the Analysis Results model. And now I'm going to say download to Revit. Now in Konstru again, we are comparing the model we have here in Revit, which is empty, versus the model we have online. And then we see all those 280 elements will be added to our model. Please also note that we have loads that we support also in Revit. So the linear loads we have online and that came from Etabs are now downloaded as linear loads into Revit. Might be interesting. Then you can use them, of course. So now I'm going to select Finish Download, because I want to download everything into Revit in this case. And it takes a second because there's our mapping dialog popping up. If you use Konstru the first time, this is a very useful tool that allows you to map the things that are coming in from one platform or another platform. And this, because the problem is sometimes if you have materials, for example, you have different materials in Etabs than in Revit. Now, in this case, we have some materials coming in, and we don't have them in our document, and therefore we have a standard that is saying assigned to create new, but you could also assign it to any other material you have in your document. And we also have an unknown material, that's fine. And then also we have profiles that are coming in, like wall profiles, and you can create new ones, or you can also map them to existing ones. And also for the profile sections of our beams, you can see here we have a W10 by 60, and this is assigned to W10 by 60, which is fine. And therefore you get a little check mark here telling you that this is actually fine because they have the same name. But you could also just select another family, for example, and map it to that. Here on the right-hand side, you can see all the loaded families in your document. Now I'm going to say OK, and those changes will be applied to Revit, and it's going to be downloaded. Depending on the size of your model, it might take a bit longer or not. And in our case, it should be quite fast because we have few elements and we only have some loads. So, and now this is done and we can now explore our model. let's jump to the 3D view. So here we see our model. And now let's select one of those beams just to have a look what's going on here. So if I scroll down here in the properties of my beam, I will see that, oh, something interesting is here. So we have a data section, and then we have some loads in here. So we have P start, we have M2 start, M3 start. Like, these are the moments, and we have shear loads and everything in here. And we also can see that this came from Etabs, and it was the load combination LC1 that we selected. So this is just to remind you where this came from. So if you are in doubt and you have trouble knowing from that model where does this data come from, you will always see it in here. And then we also see the other forces here, and they're already assigned with units. So this is quite helpful. And I also prepared, just to give you a little hint what you can do with it, a little tag that we can apply. So if I just jump to my structural plan, for example, or let's create maybe a section. So we have a bit of a view here, and maybe give it not too much depth. So and I'm going to go to this view. And in here we see, for example, our braces. And if we want to tag our beams in here with the forces, we can simply just extend the crop box, so that's fine. And what we can simply do now is we're tagging these elements. So we go to annotate, go to tag by category, select, for example, this one, and I'm going to select a tag that I created earlier. I think I put it on my desktop somewhere. Yep, I'm going to select that one. And if I can place it here, you can see now that this, for example, this brace here has P start and P end, and we see the values of that. But we can also, of course, just delete this one and just go to tag all and say structure framing, apply, and OK. And what we can see now are like all the tags being in place for all those members. And you see always P start and P end. And I mean, if you know Revit, you know how this works. So it's just basically, if I have a look at this tag, it's just this tag here, and I'm using the shared parameters that we just created automatically in Revit, and these are P start and P end. These are actually the same as you saw it in the project. I'm going to jump back to the project file, which is a view. This was a section view. So, and if I select one of those members, you will see those values in here. So these are the same values, P start, P end. And so this is quite straightforward, and you can do whatever you want with those forces in here, or color them, or whatever you prefer. You can, they're just normal parameters. And what we do is automatically in Konstru we create shared parameters. So if they don't exist, you don't have to worry about that. Konstru is creating them on the fly. I didn't have them in my document before, so this is all automatic. If you have them already, of course, they will be populated. If they're not there, they will be created automatically. So, and what I wanted to show you also is like to going through Excel, which might be very interesting for you. And in this case, I'm going to open Excel, and you already guessed it. It's the same procedure here. We have add-ins and we have Konstru. And if I run Konstru, I can select the model that we just worked on. And again, it's loading. Takes a bit. And we're going to download those forces into Excel and then manipulate them. Here we see the model again. Just wanted to have a look. And yeah, so here we also, by the way, display the units. We didn't do that before. So here you always see also that these are newtons. So you know what units we're working with. Sorry, this takes a bit now. In the meantime, what we can also do is we can have a look at Visualize tab in Konstru Online, which is really interesting. And in here, we have some different properties, how to visualize a model. For example, there's some defaults like by profile sections. So this might be really interesting. If you haven't used Konstru before, you can explore your model by the profile sections you have in here. And I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you go to attribute, you could also use the forces, and that's pretty cool. Now see, if you see that, if you jump to view by attribute in your online viewer, And then for the attribute name, you select forces. You should be able to see, okay, in this case, we see all the entire forces as a string, which is a lot of information. Let's jump to force start. And this is, for example, interesting. So we have, they're only for the loads. Yep, okay. These are for the loads we have, and in here, but here you see down there the forces. For example, here we have forces P start, axial force, and I'm going to select that one. And now we can see, and this is very beautiful. Here we see all the forces of our model, and we can also see that here we have a quite high one because that's very red on this column. We see all the forces that are distributed in this model. So here you see them, and usually there's only one of them, right? Because of those values are unique, but at the end you see the highest one is this red one, which is this element. So this is very nice. It's very helpful. So you can actually explore the entire model here. Now I'm going to jump back to Excel, and in Excel I'm going to select Analysis Results, and I'm going to download this one to Excel. And now our Excel sheet will be populated, or first we get a review stage. Here we see 280 elements, and we can say finish download. This is great. And now we see this is the latest state, analysis results. And in here we have also beams, for example, and then we jump to the beams tab. And in the beams tab, we have all the elements we have in our document. So here we can see the ID, the beam type, and then we have a location and a closest level and a name and a profile section. And if you have watched any of our earlier tutorials, you can see that here you can change profile sections if you want to, and change attributes or whatever. It's actually what we're going to do today as well, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to manipulate some of those. So you can either manipulate the values in here directly. So here we have P end and P start, for example. You see all those values in here. But what we can also do is, for example, let's have a look here at V2 end, and you see this one is not rounded. And let's say we want to round that. We can add, for example, a new column. Just type in V2 end rounded, for example. And this will be the title of the Revit property or attribute. Yeah. So this is very important that this will be its title. And if you don't type anything in a column header, it's just being ignored automatically. So what I'm going to do is equals round, equals round, and then I'm going to select V2 end and close the bracket. Sorry, I'm missing an argument. Comma 0, so we're going to drop all the digits after the comma, and now I'm going to pull it down, and so now we have those values. Those are now rounded values. You could of course do whatever calculation you would like to do with them. And now I'm going to select Konstru again, select Analysis Results, and I'm going to say Update Konstru. Now, as the title for this version, I'm going to type in something like rounded V2 end, so we know what happened. I'm going to say update Konstru. And you can see now all those elements will be loaded, and we see that we actually updated 86 beams. Now I'm going to select finish update. And what we can see in a second online are all the new values of our beams. So we see 68 elements have been updated, and these are now highlighted in orange. And this is really nice. So if you use Konstru first time, this is the version control system we're talking about. So here you can see actually the changes from this current version that we just uploaded to the version we had before, and we see what changed. So we can see here that we added a new attribute that is called V2 end rounded, and it wasn't there before, and now it has this value. And the same thing here, we have a different beam, new value here, and also for those other beams. So we see all those new attributes here. Now, we see also in our history tab.
It's already 12:30 Eastern time.
Oh, sorry. Okay, then we have to speed up or just download this one. Well, this is something we can also skip. I think it's not too important because you can just download this the same way as we just downloaded before. I think it's more important that we jump to our questions. So let's jump to our questions. And everyone, jump in your menu bar. Some of you discovered it already. There's a question tab, and please start asking questions now on this workflow. We hope that this is quite straightforward. It should be quite simple for you. If you haven't used it before, just select uploading the forces, and they will be uploaded automatically, and then you can download them into Revit.
Yeah, I think just to wrap it up, the next step would have been we would have imported those elements back into Revit. Revit would have said that 86 beams were changed. Do you want to import the changes? And we would have said yes. And every of those beams would have had a new attribute called V2 and rounded. So that's kind of the idea of the whole workflow, that you can throw any software into the mix, like Max just did with Excel, to further enhance the information that is contained finally in your Revit model.
Yeah, so let's see in our questions at the moment. If you haven't discovered the question tab yet, please ask questions there's a questions section somewhere where you can type them. And here we have a first question. Can you confirm that the parameters, specifically force, reaction, etc. and values, would match the OOTB Revit native parameters? I'm not sure if I'm getting your question right, but we can also get back to you on this one and write to you via email. But if I understand your question right, then, well, basically what we do is we are taking the force values, if we have them, from Etabs, and then bringing them into Konstru. And in Konstru, as you saw them here in the tab, if I scroll down a bit, you will see those values down here, and you see the units with them. So once you download them, the units are fine because we're taking care of the translation. So if you select these elements here, we make sure that these newtons are translated into kilonewtons depending on what we're coming in with. But if you have it set up in kilonewtons, they will be calculated to kilonewtons. Not like that we go one-to-one. We really translate them correctly.
I think it depends on the Revit family that you use, right? I think if you have a Revit family set up that has a certain parameter name, I think that's probably the question, that whether you can override parameters that are existing in a family, in a Revit family. But essentially,
okay.
So if we had a Revit family and we had a parameter called my company's M2 start, we could use Excel, for example, to map all the values from our M2 start into my custom M2 start parameter, kind of similar to what Max just showed by adding a custom parameter. I think maybe.
Yeah, that's right. And those parameters they're not part of the family. Those are just shared parameters, and they're created automatically. So if we go to manage and we have a look at, you will see them let me check. And the projects parameters, for example, here you see them, they have been added automatically, but they're coming from us. So they're not part of the family. It's just shared parameters that will be added to all those types of element framing in this case.
What about forces? Oh, sorry. What about results coming from RAM, structural steel? Are they also supported?
Yes, we also support RAM structural steel. You can do the same thing, and there's also a checkbox to upload forces. Yeah, same thing. And then we have another question. You illustrated a sample load combination. Could envelope results of multiple LCs be brought into Revit through Konstru in the same procedure? You can also use envelope results. That's not a problem, but you have to select one load combination. So this depends then on your setup. We are limited to one load combination that we allow you here to upload. No, not multiple ones, because this is basically when we bring them in, we would have a lot of information then. And of course, if we would bring all the load combinations, for example, in there, we'd have a lot of data that is attached to each element. But for sure, it's something we could look into. We're usually quite fast on responding to our customers and implementing things if you want to have some changes there that would benefit your workflow. Yes, do we have any more questions?
I think that's it.
Here's this one more.
Behind. Or do you see? Oh, sorry. There's more.
Do you support exporting RAM concept calculations to Revit? We don't support RAM concept as a client at the moment, but we're still looking into that because there's some issues with the API or some limitations basically that we are facing. But we were looking into supporting RAM concept. It might take a bit of a while, but make sure you sign up or create an account at konstru.com and we will keep you posted.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, please feel free to reach out. We have a number of ways of reaching out. Usually during the regular business hours between East Coast in the United States and Europe, you will always see if you go to www.konstru.com, you will see an orange pop-up box in the bottom right corner that you can use to chat with us. And also, if you go to our app, you will be able to, there you go, there's a chat window in the bottom right. And then also at the top under documentation, you will see how to get started, documentation, and there's also a user forum. And then there's also on the right-hand side a help menu where you can ask specific questions or report bugs to us. So there are multiple ways of getting in touch, or you could just use the email address that we send out the webinar announcements with. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.